Let's take this off. Hello and welcome to Kingdom in Context. I'm Sean. Thank you for joining us here today for off-topic reactions. Thank you for my lovely wife, Lindsay, has joined me here.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So I think today we want to look at this viral TikTok video about incompetence, weaponized incompetence.
Yes.
Not weaponized incontinence. That's a whole different video that you probably would find on X. But weaponized incompetence.
I thought we agreed you weren't going to do that joke.
That joke is timeless.
Oh, hashtag dad jokes.
All right.
Yeah, so we're gonna check out a video from this gal who she has gone viral actually within the last few months for a different video. Ironically, a video where she starts out talking about how she had thought about divorcing her husband, and everybody freaked out because they didn't listen to the whole thing, a lot like the last gal we watched, where it turned out she didn't divorce him. They worked things out. But anyways, she still has some really bad takes on stuff. And I actually wanted to discuss this topic of weaponized incompetence with our brethren, with the gals out there, because this is a very popular phrase right now, and it's being hashtagged all over the place. And I just knew if I went on TikTok and just typed in weaponized incompetence, it would pull up a bajillion videos for me of women complaining about this supposed weaponized incompetence. And I found this gal explaining it for us quite succinctly. So I figured we can listen to her school us on what this weaponized incompetence is. And then Sean and I can talk about it.
Sounds good.
Sometimes I really wonder how my husband is so successful at work, because at home it's like, where are your eyes? Why do you have so many questions? What happened to problem solving and thinking outside the box?
It's called weaponized incompetence. And while I'm not speaking about your husband or your relationship in particular, a lot of men will use weaponized incompetence to get out of doing things around the house. And the reason they want to get out of doing them is because they don't want to be responsible for them. They don't want to be accountable for packing the kids' backpacks or knowing what size shoes they have. So they're going to pretend they don't know how to do it. They're going to ask you a lot of questions. They're going to do it wrong. They're going to need you to remind them how to do everything. They're going to really seem pretty helpless overall. And the intention is that they don't want to be asked to do it again. They don't want to be in charge of this stuff. And the reason they don't want to be in charge of this stuff is because they don't see it as valuable. Whereas their work, they see the value in that work. Men have been told their whole lives that having a job that pays them well is what they can hang their hat on. That is how they provide value. If they have a good salary, a good career, a good title, those are all things that are important. And not only are they a signifier to you, his wife, his family, they are a signifier to the world. But doing the dishes, folding the laundry, making kids lunch, no one sees that, right? There's no round of applause when you do that. And so men don't want to do that work because they don't see it as valuable. But I can assure you that most of these men are incredibly capable. And when they're at work, they're meeting deadlines. They are go-getters. They are problem solvers. They come with solutions, not questions, because they know it is important. Because when they do, they get compensated. When they do, they get the fancy title. When they do, they get taken out for scotch after work. They think that's important, and so they're going to place their time and their effort there. But when it comes to the home and all the things that have to happen in the home, they don't think it's valuable work. And so no, they don't want to put time and effort into it. They don't want to problem solve, and they don't want to spend their time dealing with that. That is weaponized incompetence. That is how men use weaponized incompetence to get out of doing the unpaid invisible labor that so many women bear the burden of.
Was that I need that SpongeBob meme of that guy that's like, oh, brother.
Don't you appreciate this wise woman speaking on your behalf, babe?
Oh, wow. So many thoughts, so many ways to go with this.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to actually defer to you first, though. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are first.
Well, first, I want to say Sean and I don't believe that this is not a thing that happens ever. I actually looked into this phrase before we did this video, and it does stem back actually to like the 60s and 70s in psychology magazines. And it actually started with people talking about this kind of manipulation being used in the workplace. So, and Sean and I have, I'm sure everybody who's had a job in retail somewhere has worked with someone like that. So Sean and I we do want to validate people's experiences out there, that there are some people in this world who, among other ways of manipulating the people in their lives, they might use weaponized incompetence to do that. However, I wanted to talk about this with the ladies as kind of a warning, because I feel like this is encouraging women to assume motives about their husband's behaviors that most likely are not there. And I wanted to share my own experience with this in my own marriage and my own refinement process, shall we say, because I think that it's really easy to slip into being tricked into building bitterness and resentment against your spouse for no reason. And this is absolutely one of the ways that can start for women. So, did you want to?
Yeah. Okay. So the whole thing of it seems like a spirit of accusation for
Mhm.
one. It is assuming to accuse,
Mhm.
right? Assuming ill intent to accuse. The very premise that a man just going to feign being stupid because he doesn't value what happens in the home. Like the first thing, that's crazy because she's just completely excluding all the single fathers out there. As someone that was divorced early on with a 2-year-old back in 2008,
Mhm.
I understood what everything was valuable when my son was with me. I did everything: baths, lunchtime, bedtime routine, preparing
Laundry,
lunch
cleaning.
for school. Everything
Yeah.
was I was playing both roles because I was single. And so yeah, that is wild to hear that a man refuses to do that because of the reasons she gave, which is all assumption. That would be the first thing. It's just she's ignoring an entire demographic of men who do value those things and do those things already because they're single fathers. But I have a question though. Is she a stay-at-home wife? Because that's the vibe I'm getting.
She is not. I know from the other video of hers that went viral, she works full time and her husband works full time. So that's kind of a different that in and of itself is a different dynamic.
But did you get that vibe that she was speaking on behalf of a stay-at-home mom?
I got the vibe that she's speaking on behalf of all women and all men everywhere, and that this is just a blanket thing that men do, like, genetically.
Okay. Because ultimately, like, in a, I guess you'd have to approach it from different situations. In a stay-at-home context where the wife stays at home, that's her domain.
Right.
So she's going to know all the details, all the updates. Lord, like what I mean by that is like at a job where you're a office setting or some sort of business that the man might go to where he has fellow employees, they're going to have employee meetings, right? They've got new company rules that come out. They've got new procedures and protocols that come out at a company meeting. Oh, now we're doing it this way. Now we're doing it that way. I know we used to do it this way, but now we're going to do it this way. All those constant updates are happening at the home in the domain of the wife as a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
Does she, when the husband comes home, does she have a meeting and sitting down and say, by the way, here's the latest upload. here's the latest software update for all the protocols and procedures that I changed around the house because of XYZ. And this is the way I'd like things to be done around the house now. I highly doubt it. And instead, I imagine it's just the husband comes home and the wife's like, can you do this? And then he starts to do it. And she's like, oh, wait, I don't like doing that like that anymore. Or you're not doing it right because, CEO of the house domain changed the way she wants things done. Now, am I saying men never do this? I'm sure there's some men out there that do this. But the whole thing is that they would be doing it in bad faith. They're not respecting their wife. They're not.
Yeah, it's abusive men who are doing this. It's not.
Yeah, I don't think the genuine man that actually offers to help, like he's not typically the abusive man. The abusive man would just be like, do it yourself. I'm going to go ignore you. I'm going to go down to the bar, or I'm going to go hang out in the man cave and just ignore you altogether and not even try to help you around the house at all anyway. So I would say it's a very sliver. It's like a small sliver of men that might feel like, oh, I'm going to help my wife with whatever she's asking me, but I'm going to intentionally do it bad so she stops asking me for any kind of help. That just seems like such a small amount of men. And she's generalizing to make it seem as if all men do this.
Yeah, well, that's what we have on both the manosphere and the feminist world is just the extreme applied to everybody. And that justifies their rage and their anger and their bitterness and all that stuff and their rejection of tradition, blah, blah, blah. I want to share the reason that this all came up in my mind is because I've been going through a refining process through marriage. And one of the things that God was working on me with is appreciating the things that my husband does. And there was a time where I was kind of opining in my head, like the lady at the very beginning of this video that this gal was responding to, where she's saying, how is my husband so brilliant and amazing and smart at work, but then he comes home and he can't remember where the spatulas go, for example. I have had the same kind of questions in my head where Sean is this incredibly smart, super well read, super insightful person. And I struggled for a few years actually going into the kitchen, opening up a drawer, and finding something in a place that is not where it's supposed to be. When Sean has asked me almost every time he puts dishes away where certain things go, and I'll tell him, and he forgets the next time he puts dishes away. So he puts something where he thinks it makes sense to go. So for a while, I would open a drawer and like I would have this twinge of frustration. And ladies, this is what I really want to get to. As a woman, we're extra emotional. And I think that we have a tendency to, well, we do. We have a tendency to read into things that really aren't there. So I started, I'm glad I wasn't in this. I don't scroll TikTok, but I was never in this vein of topic of weaponized incompetence, because if I had heard this back in those times, I might have started to think Sean was using some form of weaponized incompetence, because I was vulnerable in the sense that I was thinking, I felt like he must not really care about me because he's not really listening to me when I'm answering a question he's asked about where something goes. And that was where my mind was taking me, that he asks me about this every time he puts it away and he can't remember the next time he puts it away. But I told him, was he just not listening to me? Does he just not listen when I speak? So I started going down that tunnel in my mind. And the light at the end of it, ladies, is a freight train. Okay. Because the reality is, my husband, I know my husband's heart. I know he doesn't have ill intentions towards me. I know he is trying to help me put the dishes away so I don't have to do it. He's trying to take that task off my hands so I can focus on something else. It's an act of kindness that he does for me. And I believe that men and women just have different brains. And that's why so many of us women get the joke about, how can my husband have like 165 IQ, but he can't remember to stack the skillets the right way in the cupboard so that they're not falling over because none of them fit inside of each other. So I started to realize I need to just be grateful that my husband puts the dishes away for me, and just grab the spatula and take one extra step over to the other drawer in my kitchen and put it where it goes, because he got 90% of everything else in the right spot.
Do I put the toilet paper in your clothes drawers?
No, you generally
Okay.
get things in the right spot.
Okay. Admittedly, when it comes to kitchen stuff, I struggle, and I've told her this for years. Same
And
thing.
recipes.
Yeah, same thing with the grocery store. Like, if I don't have a list at the grocery store, forget about it. Like, I'm a walking zombie. That building means nothing to me. I don't know where anything is. I don't recognize where I am. I may have to call her midway into the grocery store and say, where am I? Who am I? What year is this? I don't recognize all these strange labels and boxes. What is all this? I can't find my way around the grocery store, guys. I'm not the best at that. Like, I used to, when I had to shop on my own back in the day, I had like a very specific routine. I got very specific things. I had one pan. When she met me, I had one pan, one pot,
pan, one
one
spatula.
pan, one spatula. They all went in the same drawer. And I made like a variety of maybe 6 meals all together.
And that's
over and over
being
again.
Generous. It might have been more like 3 meals.
Because I just, I had some ghee.
Mm-hmm.
And that was only from the recommendation of a friend that's a personal trainer. And he was like, you need to get you some ghee instead of regular butter. And I had to like have him explain to me what that was and where I could find it.
Yeah. And here's the thing. How many other women out there can relate to that their husbands are helpless at the grocery store, and you give them a list and you even tell them what aisle to go on, what objects it's next. Like, you try to mitigate them getting lost in the store, and somehow they're still sending you a picture to make sure they're getting the right brand of whatever it is. Or somehow they get home and they are still missing the one thing that you sent them for.
Like 2 days ago,
like
right?
The butter sauce.
Yeah, like 2 days ago, I
literally sent him to the store for one thing.
But then we ended up adding to the list.
No, you were picking up an order of something else. So I think he
so
got
like
distracted.
There was other things going on. I had to have a conversation with the employee.
But here's the point. So he got home, and I didn't get angry at him. I didn't assume, because this is something I've seen in some other videos about the weaponized incompetence. I've seen other women claiming that this is weaponized incompetence, where a man goes to the grocery store and struggles to get the things on the list correctly. So I wanted to encourage women out there to not follow content like this unless you're going to be critiquing it like we are, because I really think that this plants seeds of just bitterness and resentment and anger, within a woman's heart. And these are thoughts that she might not have had otherwise, like when I was in the kitchen thinking, oh, does he just not listen when I'm speaking? Does he just not truly care that I like to have, these things clean and in a certain place? If I had been, in some kind of echo chamber like this, that's encouraging me to continue down that line of thinking, God might not have been able to get through to me at that point and refine me in that moment, and show me, hey, you're being a little self-centered here, don't you think? Like, how about you appreciate having a wonderful husband who will put the dishes away for you without even being asked?
Yeah. And there's just a ton, like flip the roles though, right?
Mhm.
What happens if I say, hey, can you go out and respool the weed eater and trim the backyard the way I normally do it? You would have questions.
Yes, not only that, but if I went out and did
Yeah.
it and I did it the wrong way, Sean wouldn't just assume that I'm like trying to manipulate him and not have to do it again.
Right.
Like here's a great example for you guys. The one chore that I am terrible at, I have not reached domestic goddess status in this area, is the laundry. And I was bad at doing my laundry before Sean even came along, before I even became a wife. I was forever that person pulling my clean clothes out of the laundry basket because I just struggled to get my clothes from that washer into that dryer and then into my dressers. So even when we lived at our last rental, I mean, our laundry room was right next to the kitchen. It was on the same level. We didn't have a multi-level house like we do now. And I struggled to get stuff in the washer and then actually get it out of the washer without having to redo it once or twice because I totally forgot about it and now it smells, And if Sean were to get on TikTok and talk about his wife being really bad at doing the laundry, and he just thinks that she must be doing that to send a message to him that he doesn't ever ask me to do the laundry again, that not only would Sean be attacked by the hive mind, but that would be such a wrong assumption of his wife and my heart, because that's not the case. I really have just always struggled with that particular chore. And so what does Sean do? He tries to help me out. If he's downstairs and he remembers to rotate the laundry, he'll rotate the laundry. If I'm downstairs and I remember to rotate the laundry, I'll rotate the laundry. But neither of us goes at the other one or thinks ill of the other one when we forget to do it.
No, I'm sitting there making jokes about, man, if only we were wealthy and could have a maid. Like,
and we've tried to figure out the logistics of if we hired a housekeeper only for laundry,
yeah,
how would that even work? Because then you have to pay her to be here while she's waiting for it to get done and go through. But that's what it is in our marriage. It's become something we joke about. We're lighthearted about it. We don't.
It's such a weird chore that I don't find myself naturally adopting the habit of.
Mhm.
That I've seen sincerely in my mind. I've thought to myself, well, I just want to go back to biblical days where they had 2 sets of clothing and they just washed those over and over again. And I could just get those long tunics and just wear 3 or 4 tunics around and have in
your
my
house
laundry
robe and your outside robe.
That's right. My laundry problems are over, man. Just give me a couple of those tunics.
Yeah. But ultimately, this is another double standard that women in our society are getting away with, where they can all sit and there's a whole hashtag talking about all their men who most likely, like I said, there's probably some men out there that do this. So I'd say 85% of women out there talking about weaponized incompetence are not dealing with weaponized incompetence. They are dealing with a man with men have different brains than women. That's why men are better with things for spatial awareness. That's why women, we're the ones always running over the curb. We're the ones always curb checking.
And bumpers.
Because naturally our brains aren't built as well for that spatial awareness. And if you look into studies, things in terms of organizing things inside the household specifically, it's been proven in studies that women's brains are better suited for those kinds of tasks. So you can have an incredibly brilliant husband who's incredibly loving and caring, and he could still forget where the spatulas go every time he puts them away because he has a different brain.
For some reason, I sometimes think that you've intentionally moved him around because I open the drawer and I don't see any spatulas there, and I'm like, oh, they must just be all in the dishwasher. So therefore,
Which I have like 15 spatulas.
I need to refill them into this empty space now because they're just all been in the dishwasher, but that's not where they go. So I don't know. I struggle with it because again, it starts to make me think I'm going to be expected to cook something. I get weird. I start picking up pans.
Sean has some serious kitchen anxiety, and I don't think that's across the board for all men, because actually men dominate the field of culinary. Like there's more male chefs than there are female chefs, like professional chefs.
The grill outside is a different story.
But yes, Sean's natural at the grill. Like my theory is that most men are naturally good grillers because God designed them to be in the priesthood, cooking the meat. But anyways, that's a whole different video. Another thing that I want to talk about, this woman's vile comments here, is how she is insinuating that men don't want to do these chores because there's no reward, no accolades, and no applause. And I just about fell out of my chair the first time I watched this, because I'm like, isn't it women who are online demanding applause, constant applause for the bare minimum? Everything that men do, they refer to the bare minimum. Oh, you changed your son's diapers. Oh, so you did the bare minimum. Oh, and you want to be thanked for that. Oh, that's just the bare minimum. No, it's women online who are doing the bare minimum in terms of their being wives and mothers. They want to be called super mom. They want to be praised. They want the accolades. And also, how many men out there are like getting a good title at work after going out and working 12-hour shifts on a construction site? How many men out there who, just got done working at the Department of Sanitation, taking everybody's trash to the dump for them that day? How many of them are coming home to someone buying them a scotch because, yeah, you did it. You worked for your livelihood today.
You picked up your route 10 minutes earlier today. Let's go for scotch. No, that
because ladies, most men, we do have a problem with a lot of infantilized men in the Western world right now. Okay. So when I say most men, don't include those. Okay. But most men, they have that sense of duty, and you just get up and you go to work and you make a living for your family. And it's just, they don't need the accolades. The family and the wife and that environment is the reward in and of itself for most of these guys. I know it is for Sean.
Yeah. I would say if you're striving to be a righteous man of God, then your values are going to be different. You're wanting to create peace in the home, and you strive to create an environment that fosters, pleasantness and a sense of, belonging, mutual respect, trust, well-being, satisfaction within your partner, so that there's peace in the home. And that is highly valued, right?
Yeah.
That's, a husband, I don't want to live on the corner of a roof because I have a contentious wife. And I feel like, that a man can, by not valuing the things in his home, it can lead to a contentious wife.
Sure.
So there are men that are lazy, and they slack on this concept of doing their share, so to speak, when you get home, to help out with the children, the chores, or the animals, or whatever. And so this is why it's a team effort all the way around for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not, and this is the vibe that I get from this video, is that she's now, by the way, this is a TikTok. So the girl that's holding her hair is actually overlaid onto the wife that's complaining in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the girl begins her commentary to try to translate the feelings this other wife is complaining about as weaponized incompetence. But the original wife in the background that's complaining about this, it's almost as if she's expecting like this concept of, wait a minute, my husband is intentionally wanting to do this bad, so I don't ask him to do this anymore. But yet, what's the bigger picture? Like, I would love to know more. I'd love to have be a fly on the wall, so to speak, in that environment, to see, how big of a things are these that she's asking her husband about? Are they little things? Are they big things? Is this a situation where they have a bunch of kids and she's overwhelmed, and there's no family or anyone to help or anything like that? Or is it a situation where this is a real thing? Some wives, they're not doing their share.
Sure.
And then the husband comes home and then she's like, I didn't feel well today. Could you do XYZ, this and this, plus whatever the man's supposed to be doing naturally? I highly doubt that woman went off and mowed the yard without him asking.
Yeah, I don't even know if we get. I mean, I think we get like 2 sentences from her before the other lady pops in with her stitch. But that's the thing. Like, for her to suggest that men only perform work that gets them noticed or accolades, it's like, lady, if that were true, and every man who was that way stopped doing his job because he wasn't getting accolades, the whole entire infrastructure of this entire world would fall apart. I mean, the men who go out and climb to the tops of the radio towers, the men who work on the power lines, the men who build our roads and our tunnels and our sewers, the men who clean our sewers, these people are not getting accolades. Like, when's the last time this lady went out and thanked her garbage man? I just, it blows my mind when women like this make these statements, like, completely. It just shows how self-centered they've become, that to say something like that, men don't do those things because they're not going to get praised for it, like. So, and now her husband does work. He does a very dangerous job. I think he climbs radio towers, or he does something very high heights.
The lady we're staring at here.
Yes. And it's like, does she think her husband only goes and does that job because he gets some kind of special accolades for it? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, that was another feeling I have when I watched this was, is this lady enjoying the attention, the clicks, the views? Is she giving a hot take for the sake of giving a controversial hot take?
I hope for her husband's sake that's the case.
Does her husband watch these, and does he feel good about these?
Not for his sake.
does her husband now feel like this opinion applies to him as well? That he just heard his wife say, "Oh, most men just do this to be weaponized incompetence." I'm like, yeah, come on, man. That's a huge generalization. That it's not. This to me seems like the opposite of 1 Corinthians 13. Yes. Remember the passage where it talks about love never fails, always love trust, always
patient,
hope. It's patient.
Kind.
It's kind. It does not keep record of wrongs.
Yeah.
And so we see this here is just nothing more than just a wife saying, I'm going to keep a record of wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming you do not want to do me right. And that's the opposite of love, according to the scripture. Yeah. And it's definitely the opposite of always hopes.
Right.
So she's not hoping in her husband to be there in good faith as a partner in the marriage. She's assuming he doesn't want to be there and just wants to not be asked to do anything around the house. So then he can do what? You know what I mean? But now, granted, there are some men out there who have hobbies that are destructive to their marriage.
Absolutely.
They're at the bar for 12 hours a day on NFL Sunday.
They're spending 12 hours a night on games.
They're on games. They're at the golf course for 8 hours, month, Saturday and Sunday on the weekends, not spending time with the family. Like, there's definitely some destructive habits that husbands can have for sure.
Yeah.
And trying to get out of any other menial tasks around the house.
I mean,
but you just assume with the spirit of accusation, that's destructive to the marriage.
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen the viral videos of, a lady sitting at a restaurant with 4 kids on her lap and she's feeding each and every single one of them. And then the camera pans over to her husband sitting next to her, nice and peaceful in his chair, eating his food, uninterrupted. So Sean and I are not saying that those dysfunctional relationship dynamics are not out there. And we're not saying that there are not men out there that need to be whipped into shape and need discipleship at the least, and a good 40 lashings at the worst. So Sean and I, we acknowledge that isn't a reality for some women out there. But Sean and I want to talk to the people who are not living that reality. I want to talk to the wives out there who are like me, who are standing in that kitchen, letting that thought come up of, what, doesn't he care about me since I've told him literally a million times where to put this and he still doesn't put it in the right place? I want those women out there to see this video and hear me and, be edified and be encouraged not to start this. This really encourages a tit for tat type of attitude and keeping score, and he got to do this and I had to stay at home and do this. And I really want to encourage the women out there who aren't, the ones who aren't in these truly abusive situations, but you're somehow your heart is finding ways to pick at your husband and the things that he's doing. I just want to encourage you to pray about that, recognize when you're doing it, give it over to God. You know, marriage and parenthood are these two things that have taught me so much about how often you have an opportunity to recognize when you're being completely self-centered and self-obsessed and focused on your flesh, and having the opportunity to catch yourself in that moment and flip the script in your brain and switch it from self-centered attitude to the self-sacrificial attitude that we're supposed to have towards our spouse and towards our children, towards our families. Because this is, I watched this latest video and I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of women who are going to watch this and have a well-meaning husband who, you know, has his faults, but is a good guy and isn't doing anything deliberately to his wife to manipulate her. He just has a different brain than she does. And she's going to fall down a rabbit hole like this, and it's going to start planting those seeds in her heart. And so this was a particular topic that I was like, you know what? I want to talk to the ladies about weaponized incompetence, because is it really weaponized incompetence, or is it just that your man has a different brain than you? And it's easier for you to remember where things go in the kitchen, and it's easier for him to remember what all bills need to be paid this month. You know, like the other thing that I see women in this space talking about is this mental load that women bear. Women bear the majority of the mental load in a marriage. And
you mean they're prone to worry and they don't give it over to God?
You mean we're more neurotic by nature, which is literally scientifically proven? Here's the thing. Men don't talk about their mental load. I would say that it's so many women understand what a blessing it is to be a stay-at-home mom, because we don't want the mental load of having the financial fate of our family on our shoulders solely. That is a huge stress and anxiety. And a lot of our men have a huge mental load and they don't share it with us to protect us. It's not because they think we won't understand or we won't be caring. They don't want us to feel stressed. They want to protect us from the things that they're worrying about. So this whole narrative that men weaponize incompetence and they also don't carry any of the mental load. They're just walking around, you know, trying to make a life for their families with no thoughts in their head, no worries, no stress. You know, it's just amazing to me, this narrative.
In fact, a few nights ago at dinner, I was really quiet, and then it was because I was thinking about bills and everything going on, and I caught myself midway through dinner being like, "Oh, she's going to think I'm being weird because I'm being extra quiet." And so I tried to snap out of it, but I didn't tell you that's what was going on in my head.
Yeah.
That I was like lost in thought, specifically over finances and everything going on. And I just, but yeah, so I didn't tell you about it because I don't want you to have to, you know, to join me in my worries. You got your own worries.
Yeah.
Now there's things that we can come together to pray on. For sure. That's a healthy marriage habit.
If something is serious and needs to be communicated to me, Sean communicates it. But in general, I think that most decent, godly men out there, they don't want their women to have a huge mental load. They are trying to do what they can to take things off our plates so we don't have such a mental load. But man, it's like they just can't win in this Western society right now, because even when they're trying to take things off your plate for you to have less of a mental load, then you're thinking, well, he did that for me, but he did it wrong. So he must be trying to manipulate me to get him into not asking him to do it ever again. You know, it's like,
there's
attacks from all sides.
There's a strong push to break up the family in this country. It has been going on for decades, and it is we're under not just spiritual attack, we're under ideological attack. And I don't care if I sound like a boomer.
Right.
I'm 45. I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen X, but I don't care what it sounds like. This is just the reality of it. There's a communist attack, ideological communist attack against the culture in this country to break up the family, to degrade and erode society. And the concept of communism is to break people into groups, into factions, and get them fighting with each other. And that even down to the core of just the man and wife, that's the ultimate group. And so, of course, communism wants to come in. The idea is being perpetrated. Now, TikTok obviously is going to blow this video up. Already has. TikTok literally is owned by communist CCP China. Yeah. So like we've all probably heard the news that if you went on TikTok in China, you'd see entirely there's no half naked women dancing showing you their butt. There's no weird videos. It's all educational. It's all, they have a completely different algorithm in China for TikTok versus the US. It's an intentional attack. And this type of stuff that I feel like gets propagated on social media so easily it's like the new magazines. Like the magazines you see in the 50s, 60s, 70s in the hair salons, that the women would go and they would be impressed upon by what they're reading in the magazines.
Yeah.
Now it's even 100 times more effective because it's like swipe, swipe, swipe. Oh, here's some other lady with a lot of prominence. She's got a lot of followers. People think she must have great ideas. And she's telling me that I should be mad at my husband for everything all the time, every day.
Yeah. And being the weaker vessel, I know a lot of women don't want to hear this, but it's a scientific fact that we are more impressionable than men. Hence why the serpent went to Eve and not Adam. Now, Adam totally failed in his role there too. He did not amend that situation, but women we're easier. We are easier impressed upon. We are easier to lead astray. And that is why this content is so heavily focused on women, because men aren't out there making videos like this. They're not out there whining and moaning about their wives not being good enough and things like that. The only men who are out there whining and moaning about women are in that manosphere space. When you have guys like Sean, men who ladies, there are regular guys out there. There are happily married men out there with their families who they're not online. They're not talking about these things. They're not complaining about women. And most men in general, I don't think look at women as enemies and that everything that women do is just to manipulate them. Now that narrative is trying to grow in response to feminism, which Sean and I are hoping to, add our voices for a balance in between there. But it's just, it's insane that we even have to sit here and say, ladies, be careful what you're watching, because we are the ones that are going to be easier to manipulate into being angry with our husbands. And it's going to be easier to drive wedges within marriages when they're going after the women specifically with these things that are so close to our heart that we're all experiencing. All of us. That's why there are memes about it, about your husband putting something in the wrong place, even though he's asked you a million times. I would encourage us to go back to joking about those things instead of demonizing them.
So if I wanted to take the same tenor as if I wanted to flip it as a man and take the same tenor towards a woman in this regard, and be cruel about it and assume bad of my wife, the response would be, oh, you don't like the way I do things?
Yeah.
Why are you so lazy that you need me to do things for you? This is your domain.
Yeah.
You should be taking care of your business. I take care of my business and my domain all day long. This is your domain. You're asking for help, but why isn't this already done? Why do you need my help to do this? Why can't you do this on your own?
Yeah.
You must be trying to fail at your job so that you need my help because you're lazy. But that would be horrific.
Not just that,
the women would revolt if men treated like that.
Well, and women are allowed to say, oh, you don't like the way I did that? Too bad. That's how I do those dishes. That's where I put that spatula. The point is it would not go over well.
Yeah. And it would not, so this is so out of the kindness of bearing with each other, right? Yeah. Which is also in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7, right? That you bear with one another. So you're like, okay, so you need some help on this. I'm here to help, right? This is how we are partners together, right? This is like, if my rib needs help, I don't ignore my rib and say, grow hands and do it on your own. No, I help out the rib, right? So that's just the way it goes. And I feel honored that she's asking me and not some other man. I don't ask some other man to come over and do the dishes for you, or to cut the yard for you, or to fix the fence, or to do some other thing, right? Now, if it's something outside of my technical capability, I'm willing to hire somebody. But ultimately, like, I don't want to come home and see the neighbor over here doing the laundry for you or doing the dishes for you, because I know that's a whole nother dynamic where, that's bad as well. So, there is a certain sense of honor in being needed around the house.
Yeah.
And I think that there's just, if you're trying to invest in building love, building up and not tearing down, then you're not going to just assume ill intent of these people. This is actually the same. You hear me say this a lot in these debates that I do, when I'll say, you know what, it sounds like you're here in bad faith.
Yeah.
It sounds like, I'm kind of getting this vibe that you're not here about the truth. You're just here to mock or to make fun because I disagree with you on something.
Right.
Right. So from one person to another in the faith family of God, it sounds like you're not interested in the peace that passes understanding, which is supposed to be like a qualifying descriptor of us in the faith family of God.
Yeah.
And instead, you're here to accuse, demean, insult, and mock. You're here assuming with bad faith the worst of me, that I'm a deceiver, wolf in
Right.
sheep's clothing, all
Right.
that kind of stuff, as opposed to just being like, hey, we have a disagreement. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And let's pray for each other.
Yeah.
You know? So same thing would apply in a marriage, specifically in a case like this.
Yeah. And it's sad because it takes the real trivial, mundane things and it turns them into stuff that's so big that women think they need to divorce their husbands over it. When really there are serious situations going on out there that less and less people are talking about with actual domestic violence, actual abusers, actual women being victimized and needing to flee dangerous situations. None of that has changed. That is still an epidemic in this country. And meanwhile, women who don't deal with that kind of trauma and that kind of danger in their lives, they're online complaining about weaponized incompetence that most likely isn't even really true for themselves and their lives with their men. So it's just sad.
You don't see a lady in a hijab making these type of videos.
No, well, it might be a little harder depending on what country you're in. But I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Speaking of abuse.
Yeah, right.
Speaking of abuse,
actual oppression of women.
We should do a video on that in the future.
Oh,
I think I have some good ideas for that.
That could be some good fodder for us.
Yeah.
So let us know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys think weaponized incompetence is really a thing? Do you think it's really a widespread thing? Are there any ladies out there who felt like maybe you've dealt with that? Now, be careful about what you leave in our comments. There are some times that we get whole life stories and comments, and those aren't private. That our channel is public. Anyone can read your comments under our videos. Also, Sean and I are not marriage counselors. We don't offer any kind of marriage counseling or anything like that. So we can't really give any kind of specified advice, but we're interested to hear in your thoughts on this. Are there any ladies out there like me who maybe started going down that line of thinking with your husband and thinking that he was doing this and maybe you didn't realize it until you were watching this video, or maybe you went through a little refining process like myself a while back and realized, oh my gosh, like I am totally making something out of nothing. Like, let us know what you guys think. I personally think this is being blown out of proportion and that it's most likely not happening on the level that those kind of women are saying it is. I do think it's probably there's a portion of people who do this at work and in the home, but I think it's being overblown into a hashtag personally.
You know what I think the female equivalent of this weaponizing comments would be?
Tell me.
He's just a friend.
Weaponized friend zoning.
No.
Weaponized.
Let's try it again.
I see what you're saying.
The woman claiming he's just a friend.
Yeah.
I've never noticed him actually liking me or trying to progress upon me. He's just a friend.
Now, I will say that most of us women in our ignorance do mean that. I've told my story on another video about my best male friend and really not picking up on any of those things that another man will pick up on. So, but you're right.
What do you guys think? Tell us, how you guys doing in the live chat?
Yeah, I saw
I didn't see anything yet.
Some insightful comments in there. Someone was talking about projecting the things that you don't like to do onto others. How this woman, she minimizes those tasks done in the house. So that's what she projects onto her husband.
Yeah, imagine like we're in such a technologically advanced society where like we have a dishwasher, we have air humidifiers, we have water directly to you at the house. You don't have to walk a mile to go get water and bring it back for the day. You have a washing machine, you have a bathtub, you have all this stuff, that like you're not having to beat your rug and hang it outside.
Yeah.
Well, I guess some people still do, but like you could just, most rugs you can put in the washing machine, depends on the size of it, clearly. But the point is there's all these things. You have a vacuum cleaner to clean your rugs and your carpets, and carpet cleaners, specialized machines for carpet cleaning. You got all these things that like, I mean, just there's so many things that are advancements to give women more time throughout the day.
Yeah.
And here we are, they have the time to complain as opposed to.
Yeah. And she's got a full-time job and she still has time to complain.
It's crazy. crazy.
Oh, Carmela, not gonna lie. Sometimes let me put this on screen.
Yeah, and men don't blame you for that.
Sometimes I fake not being able to do handyman type stuff, so my husband won't do it. Look, Carmela, sometimes I will say, I'm gonna go do this because I've asked him to do it and it's been a week and he hasn't gotten around to it, and I don't want to nag.
But you,
so I'm
you
like,
give that
I'm gonna
little,
go do this.
you give that little pause. You pause and look at me. I'm gonna go do this, and I'm like, ugh.
See, women
let me clear my schedule so I can go do this right now.
Women, and we can admit it, and it's not turned into this. My husband is like, "Oh, you weaponize that against me." No, he's like, "Yeah, I didn't get around to it for a week. I need to get around to it. My wife is, she's clanging the bell. It's time to get it done." And that's how most men are looking at their wives, where they are not assuming this weaponized stuff. It's just such a bad attitude to have towards your spouse.
Especially if, the husband is, again, we don't know the circumstances, but if the husband is just on the PS5 all day when he gets home, or if he's, I'm going to hang out with John down the street, and they're just going down there to have beers in his garage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Till dark.
Yeah, that's a problem.
These are problems. These are genuine problems versus a husband who is actively engaged in his job to provide the house you're living in, and the roof and the clothes and the food and everything. And then he comes home and is actually engaged with the family. And I hope that woman's not complaining about that type of man. You know what I mean? Because there's a ton of men who are negligent and make excuses, just like women can be both negligent and can just both be playfully coy in order for them to be like, you know what, I would really like this done, but I can't do it, but I'm going to act like I'm about to do it because my husband knows the moment that when I start coming up to him and asking him, where's the drill? He's going to be like, oh no, sit down.
Yeah. So, that is manipulation, but I think that's good-hearted manipulation. That is me not wanting to keep nagging my husband about something, but still needing to nag him about it so he doesn't forget. So I find the non-nagging way to do it. So, yeah.
Yep.
I think that's probably all I've got to say about this gal and her expert opinion.
Oh, that's worse, Carmela. That's worse. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that to him. No. You let him bring up that one.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us today. Let us know what you think of this hot take in the comments. Like we've said before, we want to do more reactions like this. If you guys come across, Sean and I really don't scroll TikTok. I make real deep dive posts on my Facebook, and I scroll my Facebook occasionally throughout the day. But so if you guys are coming across, some videos like some hot takes like this that you'd like to hear a more balanced biblical perspective from a healthy married couple on it, shoot them our way, send them to me or Sean, drop them in the comments. But yeah, let us know what you think. Give the video a like, subscribe, share. All the tropes I'm supposed to include for the algorithm.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow, most likely.